Hey guys, welcome to Sleepy Scientist Tells. Tonight we're spinning into something a little off-axis. You're about to find out what would happen if our planet Earth suddenly stopped spinning. 1 minute, everything's normal, clouds drifting, oceans rippling, trees swaying gently in the breeze. The next minute, stillness, no rotation, the Earth freezes mid-twirl. Sounds peaceful, right? Like a cosmic pause button. Well, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts with a feeling. Nothing violent, just off. You're standing outside at dusk. The air is cool. The breeze slips past your skin like silk. Then the wind dies completely. You notice the trees stop swaying. The clouds, once drifting lazily, hang motionless, like someone pressed pause on the atmosphere. You tilt your head. A dog barks in the distance. But even sound feels thinner, slower. In this dream, Earth has stopped rotating. No warning, no rumble. No shudder beneath your feet. Just stillness. But here's the thing, Earth's rotation is what makes everything work. Right now, as you lie here, the planet is spinning at roughly 170 kilometers per hour at the equator. That's faster than a bullet train, and you don't even feel it. But if it were to stop instantly, the results would be dramatic. Let's take a moment to understand the science behind that spin. Earth formed from a whirling disk of gas and dust, and like a figure skater pulling in their arms, it spun faster as it formed. It's kept spinning ever since. Gravity, inertia, conservation of angular momentum, all working together to keep the planet twirling like a cosmic ballerina. Now imagine slamming the brakes. Just like when a moving car suddenly stops, everything on Earth that's not bolted down, including you, would keep moving at that same speed. At the equator, you'd be hurled eastward at 170 km/h. That's like being launched out of a supersonic cannon. Not ideal. Weird fact, scientists theorize that if the Earth gradually stopped over 1 million years, we might adapt. The days would get longer, the winds calmer, the climate stranger, but survivable. But we're not talking gradual here. We're talking BM, full stop, mid-rotation. The oceans, they've got momentum too. So when the land stops, the water doesn't. Tsunamis hundreds of meters high would sweep across continents. Entire coastlines would vanish beneath walls of churning seawater. The atmosphere, same story. Windstorms, stronger than anything recorded, would tear through cities like angry ghosts. These winds could flatten forests, uproot mountainsides, and send buildings flying like leaves. And you, if you weren't instantly vaporized by friction or crushed by debris, you might find yourself tumbling through the air like a forgotten umbrella on a stormy day. Here's where things get surreal. After the chaos, silence, permanent silence. With no rotation, there'd be no day-night cycle. One side of Earth would face the sun constantly, burning under relentless heat. The other, trapped in eternal darkness, freezing slowly beneath a sunless sky. But what's even weirder, gravity would shift. Not the force itself, but how we experience it. Earth's spin creates a slight outward bulge at the equator. Without it, gravity would pull everything inward more strongly, making you feel slightly heavier. Your spine might compress. Your step, once light, would feel more deliberate, like walking through honey. You wander now in this dreamlike world, where time has lost its rhythm and the sun no longer moves. You stand in the half-lit zone between eternal day and night, the Terminator line. Shadows stretch forever. Air still hums with static. You feel small, suspended. The Earth isn't spinning anymore, but your mind is. And the strangest part, you feel calm. You're still standing on the edge of twilight. Behind you, the scorched lands of day. In front, the silent, ice-bound night. You're not sure how you got here, but your feet seem to know the path. They follow a trail of flickering lights, phosphorescent moss glowing blue in the shadows, like breadcrumbs laid by the Earth itself. This line, the Terminator, becomes your new equator. A ribbon of habitability between two extremes. The only place where life might cling on. Because if Earth stopped spinning, our weather systems would collapse into chaos. Right now, Earth's spin gives rise to the Coriolis effect, which helps shape wind patterns and ocean currents. Without rotation, no hurricanes, no jet streams, just chaotic, unpredictable climate. That Goldilocks zone would shrink, rainforests would dry up, deserts would freeze. Storms would brew in strange, unfamiliar ways. Global ecosystems would fracture like a dropped snow globe. But here's the kicker: the planet wouldn't just stop being Earth. It would begin becoming something else. Something alien. The moon would behave differently too. Right now, Earth's rotation causes tidal bulges that tug on the moon, slowly pushing it away. But no rotation, no tidal friction. The moon would settle into a new rhythm, or possibly spiral inward. Scientists aren't exactly sure. Let's talk about magnetism. Earth's spinning molten core helps generate our magnetic field, the invisible shield that protects us from solar radiation. No spin. That field could collapse. The skies would shimmer with strange auroras. Beautiful, yes, but deadly. Radiation would seep in, damaging DNA, frying electronics, erasing data like chalk in a rainstorm. So now, you walk beneath a swirling sky of colors. Red ribbons curl beside blue storms of light, like ink in water. It's beautiful. You almost forget the danger. Fringe fact: the giant red spot on Jupiter, yes, the storm, could be similar to what Earth's atmosphere might become. A permanent storm, centuries long, trapped in place with no Coriolis to disperse it. And in this new Earth, the silence is almost musical. Time has changed. Not just how you experience it, but how the world marks it. Sundials no longer work. Clocks feel arbitrary. You find yourself judging time by the temperature of the air, the position of the moon, the color of the sky. Another open question: could humans survive long term in the Terminator zone? Would we evolve into two species? One adapted to heat, the other to cold. Or would we build moving cities, always chasing twilight? For now, you continue walking, along the edge of time, past glowing rocks and frozen rivers, into a world both ancient and entirely new. And somehow, you're still not tired. You've now wandered deep into the twilight belt, a dreamy inn, between that hums with strange life. The sky above is painted in gradients of soft indigo and lavender, with the sun forever hanging low on the horizon, casting sideways shadows that stretch like reaching fingers. The world is tilted into something permanent and poetic. Time is gone. There is only before and after spin. In this new world, gravity presses just a little heavier. You feel it in your knees, in the way your breath sits lower in your chest. Without the centrifugal force from Earth's spin, there's nothing counteracting gravity at the equator. You weigh just a tiny bit more. Not much, maybe the same as carrying a small book in your pocket. But your body notices. And speaking of your body, it's confused. Your internal clock, that rhythm set by the dance of day and night, is searching for a beat that no longer exists. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's timekeeper, is still doing its job, but without a cue. It's like a conductor without an orchestra, waving its hands in silence. This disorientation feels oddly serene. You've slipped into what some scientists call circadian drift, where your body begins creating its own rhythm. You might find yourself sleeping for 18 hours, then awake for 30. Or not sleeping at all, just drifting. Weird science on submarines, where crew members are cut off from natural light. Circadian rhythms often shift to longer than 24-hour cycles. And in early space missions, astronauts reported strange sleep patterns that felt more like ocean tides than ticking clocks. You now sit beneath a crooked tree, watching the still shadows of leaves that don't move. There's no breeze. Without spin, air doesn't circulate the way it used to. Global winds collapse into slow convection flows. Heat builds on the sunward side. Cold sinks in the dark. It's like someone placed a heat lamp on one side of the globe and a freezer on the other, then walked away. You sip from a bottle of water, lukewarm, faintly metallic. It tastes slightly off, like minerals have been rearranged in the stillness. That's because with the change in wind and currents, rain doesn't fall where it used to. Rivers stop flowing. The hydrological cycle starts to hiccup. Droughts stretch longer, floods hit harder. Water is still here, it just doesn't know where to go, and then you look up and see the stars. The constellations no longer rotate through the night. The sky is a static dome, painted with points of light that never move. Orion frozen mid-hunt. The Milky Way a silver scratch across the firmament eternally fixed. It's breathtaking. It's also disorienting. For thousands of years, humans used the moving sky to track time, direction, and seasons. Now, the heavens have become a postcard. Here's a fringe thought: without rotation, Earth's axis would stop precessing too. That slow wobble, like a spinning top, normally shifts our pole stars over millennia. But now it halts. Polaris is your forever companion, and maybe that's comforting. In a strange way, it's nice to know something still points north. You lie back on the cool ground, your gaze soaking in that unmoving sky. The silence feels deeper here. Less like absence and more like presence, like the earth is holding its breath. And yet, the planet is still alive. Beneath your body the molten core still churns. Tectonic plates still press and shift. Volcanoes still smolder. But without spin, the stress points change. Earthquakes erupt in unexpected places. Mountains grow skewed. Fault lines redraw themselves like cracks in a glass globe held too tightly. One open question scientists still ponder: if Earth stopped spinning but still orbited the sun, could we ever stabilize again? Could life reemerge in the twilight? Some think yes. Others believe the planet would become a tidally locked wasteland, with all atmosphere migrating to the terminator, leaving the extremes bare. But for now, in this moment,
You're here.
breathing, dreaming, listening to the still heartbeat of a planet caught mid-turn. You don't need sleep, not yet. But the land does. The sky does. You can feel it, a longing, as if everything is yearning to move again, to rotate, to blink. Still, the earth remains paused. And so do you. The silence stretches into something deeper now, almost like a lullaby hummed by the atmosphere itself. You're past the strange euphoria of early stillness and into the world's slow unraveling. Not violently, not apocalyptically, just quietly. Like a blanket coming undone stitch by stitch. You step out into what used to be morning, at least in this place, on this side of Earth. The sun, unmoving in the sky, bakes the ground beneath it with a relentless glow. It's not harsh light, exactly. It's soft gold with a dusty shimmer, but it never dims. The shadows don't shift. The temperature creeps higher. Plants turn their leaves downward in protest. Your skin prickles. You're sweating, but it's not evaporating fast enough. That's because the wind no longer blows with any real purpose. Without Earth's spin, the Coriolis effect, the invisible hand that sculpts the jet streams, is gone. What remains is sluggish convection like slow boiling soup. In tropical regions, this stagnant air grows heavy with moisture. Clouds stack into towering shapes but don't move. Rain falls in place, flooding lowlands while nearby deserts remain thirsty. Weather becomes trapped, unable to travel, like a song that loops endlessly in one chorus. And somewhere else, far away, in the eternal night, a different story unfolds. Let's visit that side of Earth. It's a frozen canvas of deep navy and glacier blue, where moonlight glints off endless ice. Temperatures plummet so low that the air itself becomes denser. Ocean currents, disrupted by this thermal imbalance, stall in confusion. The great conveyor belts that once kept climates stable now sink or halt. Without their gentle churn, marine ecosystems begin to flicker out like dimming lanterns. You walk through the darkness here, careful slow steps over frost-laced terrain. The air tastes like metal. With the sun gone, photosynthesis ceases. Plants die, oxygen production declines. The atmosphere thins very gradually, like someone letting the air out of a room without opening the door. Weird science in simulations of tidally locked planets. Like some exoplanets we've studied. Life might still emerge in the twilight zones. It wouldn't look like ours. Maybe mosses that drink fog. Maybe organisms that generate their own glow. In theory, even Earth could adapt over millions of years. But right now, the change is too fast. Not catastrophic, just inconvenient for carbon-based life. And yet, in this cold zone, the stars seem clearer, brighter. The sky feels closer, like you could reach up and press your hand against the velvet of space. Aurorae still ripple across the magnetic poles, painting long emerald curtains across the heavens, fueled by solar winds that still arrive even though the Earth no longer turns to greet them. This brings us to the heart, not metaphorically, your actual heart. With the changing gravity and the stillness of atmosphere, your cardiovascular system begins to protest. Blood pools differently now. Your body, long used to the gentle tug and release of spin, has to recalibrate how it circulates. Your heart beats harder at rest, veins swell slightly. You feel heavier when standing, lighter when lying down, a permanent plane of pressure, and now your brain steps in, running triage. It's struggling to stay balanced. Spatial awareness goes wobbly. You occasionally reach for something and miss. Your vestibular system, the part of your inner ear that handles balance, was calibrated for a spinning world. In this quiet, it whispers nonsense. The floor feels soft one moment, then impossibly firm the next. Here's the twist: some species might thrive here. Creatures that rely less on movement. Bacteria in thermal vents. Deep sea organisms that already live in darkness. Fungi, algae. Even tardigrades, those microscopic survival champions, could simply shrug and continue munching space dust as if nothing happened. So maybe Earth isn't ending, just changing tempo. Still, for you, there's an ache now, not pain, just that sensation of something once taken for granted now deeply missed. The turning, the ticking, the rhythm. You lie back once more, straddling the border between frozen shadow and blazing sun. Between past and future. You look up, always up, and you wonder if the stars notice your planet isn't spinning anymore. You wonder what silence sounds like in orbit, and though you aren't sleepy, a kind of calm drowsiness creeps into your muscles. Not the urge to sleep, just the memory of it. And that may be more powerful than you think. The human body, resilient as it is not a fan of cosmic stillness. You were built for motion. Every cell of you, from the flexing of tendons to the fluttering of your eyelashes, evolved in rhythm with a spinning earth. That rhythm was your metronome. Without it, things begin to drift. Not all at once, not dramatically, just a little off. And now, with the earth paused like a film on a frozen frame, your inner clocks have nothing to calibrate to. You feel it first in your sleep, or rather, in the absence of it. Melatonin, that gentle chemical librarian that tells your body it's time to quiet down, isn't sure what to do anymore. It was trained to respond to darkness. But now, the sun never sets, at least not here. And even when you close the curtains and turn off the lights, your biology knows the difference. Knows the sun is still out there, waiting, watching. So you lie in bed, not tired, not fully awake, just hovering in that liminal space where dreams might bloom, but never fully do. Your thoughts stretch and blur. Memories arrive out of order. Was that yesterday? Or 2 weeks ago? Or did it never happen at all? This is the second major unraveling your circadian rhythm, so deeply hardwired that even isolated cave dwellers tend to develop a 24-hour cycle, starts to wobble, like a compass spinning in a magnetic storm. Weird science break in the absence of external cues. Some humans begin drifting into longer personal days, around 25 or even 26 hours long. It's as if we were always slightly out of sync with Earth, but the planet kept pulling us back like a cosmic leash. But the leash is off now, so you wonder, maybe it's 2 p.m., maybe it's 2 a.m., doesn't matter. You eat when you feel hollow. You sleep or try to when your mind collapses under its own weight. You begin creating artificial markers, timers, alarms, playlists, anything to break the endless now. Outside, ecosystems are responding too. Birdsong fades. Many species use the rising sun as a cue. Pollinators struggle. Bats and nocturnal creatures become disoriented. Sea turtles, who once used moonlight to find the ocean, wander in circles under an unmoving sky. Time no longer flows here, it drips. And somewhere high above in the thin air, satellites begin to fail. That's the next consequence of a halted Earth. Many satellites rely on Earth's rotation to stay in proper orbit. Without it, their math no longer works. Trajectories falter. Systems fall. Communication grows patchy. GPS grows unreliable. Imagine walking through a city where your phone shows you standing in 3 places at once. Imagine emergency systems blinking out in slow cascades. Not catastrophically, just inconveniently, unsettlingly. A quiet technological forgetting. And yet, for all the decay, something strange happens to your perception of beauty. The sky, always hanging in the same position, becomes a mural instead of a clock. You start to notice new details in the clouds, in the color gradients near the horizon, in the way light folds around buildings and trees. With no schedule to chase, your attention stretches like taffy. Every moment becomes an eternity, every breeze a minor revelation. It's not all bad. Your breathing slows, you savor meals more, conversations deepen, not out of need but out of choice. With time unhinged, so is urgency. You are not late, you are not early, you simply are. There's a theory in psychology called chronostasis, the illusion that time briefly stops when you first look at a clock. That sensation, that eerie pause, now defines your whole world. And as you adjust, a part of you wonders, was this what it was always meant to be? Were we always moving too fast? But then a flicker, a crack in the calm. Your body, still craving rhythm, starts generating its own. You tap your fingers, you count your steps, you hum. It's instinct, a way of recreating the lost metronome. Your heart appreciates it, your brain too. Music, even imagined, activates the same neural pathways as actual rhythm. So you begin to invent lullabies for yourself, songs without words, just patterns, echoes of how the world used to turn. Your biology may not be built for this, but your imagination is. And in this imagined rhythm, you finally feel something resembling sleepiness. Not the natural kind, but a gentle, willing surrender, a choice to drift. You lie back again. And now, without thinking, you pretend the earth is still spinning. Just for a moment. Just long enough to fall into a dream you can't quite remember. You wake, if you can call it that, into a world where day has still not ended. There's no sunrise waiting to greet you, no shadows stretching and shrinking as hours pass. Just the same unmoving light spilling through your curtains, still and unchanged. Your body ache is in small, unfamiliar places, not pain exactly, just the soft complaints of muscles and joints unsure of when to work or when to rest. Without sleep's healing touch, the quiet maintenance your body normally performs each night is behind schedule. Your cells are overdue for repair. Hormones once triggered by REM cycles now linger in limbo. Even your skin feels different, duller, maybe. Like it hasn't had time to recover from yesterday, because yesterday never ended. This is when the real drift begins. Your perception of time becomes slippery. Memory fades faster, and what remains blurs at the edges. Did you eat lunch today? Or was that still part of yesterday's loop? You find yourself rereading the same sentence. Standing in doorways unsure why you're there. Words escape your tongue like balloons let go too early, just out of reach. Scientifically speaking, this is a failure in hippocampal function. The hippocampus, your brain's memory center, thrives on rest. Sleep helps consolidate short-term thoughts into long-term memories. Without it, your mental filing system starts mislabeling, misplacing, misfiring. You're not losing your mind. You're just losing track. Stranger still are the emotions. Not sharp, overwhelming emotions, but rather a slow, foggy flattening. Joy feels a little more muffled. Frustration, a bit too raw. Things don't hit you with their usual weight. It's as though your reactions are wearing gloves. Here's the strange twist your body tries to compensate. The adrenal system, sensing stress, ramps up. You get bursts of energy, like tiny storms of clarity between long stretches of haze. These don't last, but in those moments you might feel oddly euphoric, as if sleep deprivation is a drug. Dangerous, but tempting. That brings us to our weird fact of the hour: sleep deprivation can mimic mania. In certain individuals, especially those with underlying neurological sensitivities, lack of sleep triggers hyperactivity, rapid speech, and even hallucinations. It's not just tiredness, it's a forced chemical imbalance. It's why sleep is so deeply tied to mental health, and why psychiatrists always ask, "Are you sleeping?" Meanwhile, in the quiet world outside, nature continues adjusting. Plants still perform photosynthesis, soaking in light with no off switch. But they too are confused. Some flowers, which normally close at dusk, remain open indefinitely, their rhythms disrupted. Bees forget their patterns, migration stops, reproductive cycles falter. Insects that depended on darkness to avoid predators now hover in eternal day. Human cities adapt quickly, of course. Some build artificial twilight zones, giant spaces bathed in soft blue or amber light, mimicking dawn and dusk. People line up to enter them, seeking relief, seeking a sense of flow. Children call them the pretend hours. Some even fall asleep there, finally. But these pockets are temporary comfort. In your own space you try tricks, blackout curtains, eye masks, sound machines whispering ocean waves. But even your dreams, when they come, feel strange, thin, fragile, like paper lanterns trying to float but always sinking back down. You begin experiencing hypnagogic illusions, half-dream visuals as your brain attempts to slip into sleep without quite making it. Shapes drift across your closed eyes. Phantom voices mumble from another room. There's a moment where your hands feel too far away from your body. You're not hallucinating, not really. You're dream leaking. One study showed that even in wakefulness, brains deprived of REM begin producing dreamlike images as if it can't wait any longer. You're still conscious, but barely. And then, perhaps most bizarre of all, comes microsleep's cousin, local sleep. Here's what scientists have found: in extreme wakefulness, individual parts of the brain begin sleeping independently, a few neurons at a time, little rest stations along your neural highway. One section goes offline for a moment while the rest pretends everything is fine. Imagine playing a symphony where the violins start napping between notes. Or a choir where half the singers are dreaming. The music still happens, but with strange gaps. This leads to coordination errors, dropped thoughts, misjudged distances. You may find yourself holding a cup of tea, not realizing your hand has tilted it slightly. You notice only when your wrist is wet. Or you're walking through a hallway and briefly forget how wide your shoulder span is, bumping into the frame. It's disorienting, but also oddly humbling. Because in these quiet misfires, you're reminded just how fragile your system is. Just how elegantly interwoven all your functions must be for reality to feel seamless. And with that elegance breaking down, you realize you're becoming something else. Not quite asleep, not quite awake, somewhere in between, a twilight version of yourself, floating softly in the space between seconds. Still standing, still going. But now, walking through your days like a dream you can't quite wake from. You begin to forget what real tiredness feels like. Not because you're no longer tired, but because the sensation has become constant. It's not a wave anymore, it's an ocean. You don't remember what it felt like to be truly rested. That memory, like your dreams, has gone silent. Your limbs feel heavier today. Moving requires a bit more thought. You walk with the kind of careful slowness normally reserved for icy sidewalks or carrying something fragile. Except now, it's your thoughts that are fragile. One wrong step and the whole mental stack might tumble. Your speech grows slower too. You reach for words and they arrive late. Or not at all. You find yourself pointing to things instead of naming them. It's as if your mouth and your mind have begun speaking slightly different dialects, separated by a tiny delay. This is where reaction time really begins to degrade. Studies show that after 48 to 72 hours without sleep, your reaction speed is worse than that of someone legally drunk. The same synapses that normally snap like fingers now feel like molasses, coated strings trying to pull each other into alignment. Simple tasks begin to require full concentration. Tying shoes, making toast, sending a text. You hold your phone longer before remembering why you picked it up. You reread the same message 4 times, then forget to respond. Meanwhile, internally, your immune system has begun drafting surrender letters. Natural killer cells, those microscopic bodyguards who patrol for viruses and rogue cells, have reduced in number. Your inflammatory response is skewed. Your body is essentially trying to function with its shields down and sensors half glitched. Here's the odd part: you don't feel sick, not yet. But your biology is now operating on borrowed time. Every extra hour awake is like another unpaid invoice stacking up. You're racking up physiological debt that no nap can cover. Let's take a weird science detour: sleep and cerebrospinal fluid. During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid cushioning your brain, pulses more rapidly, washing away toxins and metabolic waste. This process is like the brain's nighttime rinse cycle. Without sleep, this cleaning slows dramatically. Waste products build, not just beta amyloid, but tau proteins and oxidative molecules. Basically, without rest, your brain becomes a cluttered workshop, full of half-finished thoughts and flickering lights. And now the dreams start bleeding in. You're walking into the kitchen and hear music, though nothing's playing. You turn your head and swear you saw movement, just at the edge of vision. Not threatening, just curious, like your brain is running a slide projector and accidentally slipped in a dream. These are hypnopompic hallucinations, and they're entirely expected. Your brain is desperately trying to simulate the REM phases it's been denied. It starts merging reality with dream logic. You see patterns in wallpaper, faces in ceiling textures. You smell phantom scents, coffee, rain, lavender, that aren't there. A quiet surrealism seeps into your day. The world takes on the consistency of a lucid dream, just real enough, but soft at the edges. You stare longer at shadows. You listen for things that may not be making sound. Your body begins to compensate in small ways. You blink more often. You shift weight from foot to foot. All these little movements are your system's last-ditch efforts to stay alert. Even your thermoregulation, the way your body balances internal temperature, is off. You fluctuate between too warm and too cold, sometimes within minutes. That's your hypothalamus, now confused by a circadian rhythm that no longer exists. It's trying to interpret signals in the dark, guessing how to keep you in balance. Outdoors, the still sun world glows like a paused documentary. The clouds remain in their long arcs. The trees barely rustle. Animals hide in dens and burrows, unsure of the day. In some cities, humans begin developing new schedules based on artificial cues. Alarms, artificial sunsets, meal patterns. But for you, inside this long now, none of it quite matters. You've become a time traveler of a strange kind. No longer tethered to the turn of the earth. You don't sleep. You barely eat. You hydrate, mostly out of habit. Your reflection in the mirror looks familiar but slightly detached, like a version of you paused mid-thought. And yet, a quiet sense of peace creeps in. Not comfort, but surrender. You are no longer fighting sleep. You are floating in the absence of it. And somehow you're still here. Something strange has happened to time. It no longer moves in minutes and hours. Instead, it flows in feelings. One moment stretches into 3, while others collapse into seconds. You can't tell how long it's been since you last checked the clock, but you know that time doesn't feel the way it used to. It's become thick, soft, and elastic. Like you could push your hand into it. This isn't poetic exaggeration. Sleep deprivation genuinely distorts your perception of time. Your brain's internal chronometer, the network of circuits that interprets time intervals, starts misfiring. You overestimate how long some things take and underestimate others. Events loop in memory. Sequences jumble. It's a bit like living inside a movie you've already seen, but with the scenes slightly out of order. Outside, sunlight leaks through your blinds, soft and warm. But inside, your brain feels cool and foggy. The kind of fog that rolls in slow and stays there, just thick enough to make the world seem distant. Your body is conserving energy now. Movements shrink. You speak less. You blink slower. Even thinking becomes a quieter affair. Every task, every sentence you try to form, every name you try to recall, requires effort. Your brain is a browser with too many tabs open. Some freeze, others crash, and a few just keep spinning, stuck in a loop. And here's the paradox: your brain, though exhausted, is now more active in certain ways. This is the tipping point where creativity and madness flirt. Without regular sleep cycles, your brain's default mode network, the system responsible for mind, wandering, daydreaming, introspection, fires unpredictably. That's why sleep-deprived people sometimes come up with wildly original ideas or spiral into conspiracy theories. Without sleep, the filter between logic and imagination thins. One open scientific question is whether extreme wakefulness unlocks hidden creativity or just temporarily disables our inner critic. It's hard to say. Artists like Salvador Dali and Thomas Edison famously used micro-naps to induce surreal mental states. But they didn't push it for days. You, however, have pushed. And now you're seeing the cracks. You pour cereal into a cup instead of a bowl. You brush your teeth with the wrong end of the toothbrush. You open the fridge, close it, and open it again, forgetting what you were doing in between. Meanwhile, the systems inside you continue their slow collapse. Your digestive rhythms are out of sync. Stomach acid production misfires. You might feel a bit nauseous or bloated. Your gut microbiome, the ecosystem of trillions of bacteria that help regulate everything from immunity to mood, is struggling without its usual circadian cues. Sleep and digestion are more entwined than you'd think. In fact, researchers are exploring how disrupted sleep patterns can cause long-term shifts in microbiota balance, potentially leading to metabolic issues. And now your vision starts to blur just slightly, not because your eyes are failing, but because your brain is no longer interpreting visual input clearly. You might notice double images, difficulty focusing, or weird shifts in peripheral vision. Even sound becomes more porous. You hear things that aren't there, whispered words, distant knocking, faint music. These are auditory hallucinations, and they're common after 702 off hours without sleep. Your sensory systems, desperately tired, begin to cross wires. That soft fan hum might morph into someone calling your name. The fridge buzz might carry a rhythm. You glance at shadows longer, wondering if they moved. Still, a strange calm has returned. The kind that comes when the storm has passed. Not because it's over, but because you're now part of it. You're not resisting the fatigue anymore. You're wrapped in it, and even as your systems continue to shut down, bit by bit, you feel oddly serene. This is what some call sleep inertia in reverse. Normally, you wake from sleep and take time to fully rejoin the world. But now, you're leaving the waking world in stages, drifting out of sync with the regular flow. Your body temperature is slightly lower. Your blood pressure is dropping. Your muscle tone has decreased. Even your metabolism has begun to slow. Yet you're still upright, still awake, still aware, though the line between dream and waking is wearing thin. A glowing orb in your mind's eye, a floating melody with no source, an image of water, though you're nowhere near the sea. Your brain, unanchored from time and sleep, has become a painter of strange impressions. Somewhere deep inside, your pineal gland, which regulates melatonin, is still firing faintly, confused but loyal. It doesn't know why you're still awake. It just knows it's nighttime again, and it wants to help. So it fills you with gentle drowsiness. Not enough to knock you out. Just enough to fog the corners of your mind. You rest your head on your hand, not sleeping, just thinking, and the thoughts are quieter now, like they know they're being whispered to. You've now passed into the third night without sleep. At this point, your body is no longer making quiet suggestions, it's begging. Systems that once politely requested rest are now staging protests, banging metaphorical pots and pans against the inside of your skull. And your thoughts, they no longer move in straight lines. They curve, swirl, repeat. You start a sentence in your head and forget how it ends before the middle arrives. Language slips, grammar phrase. You read the same text 3 times and understand none of it. You're not losing intelligence. You're losing cohesion. Your prefrontal cortex, already weakened, now struggles to string thoughts together. It's like trying to run complex software on a phone with 1% battery left. The app might open, it might even run, but it'll glitch, and eventually it'll crash. Meanwhile, another phenomenon kicks in, derealization. It's the sensation that the world is unreal, dreamlike, artificial. You might look at your hands and feel like they belong to someone else. You hear your own voice and wonder if it's really you. Lights feel too bright, colors too saturated. It's like the filters on reality are being swapped out at random. This isn't psychosis. It's your brain protecting itself. Scientists believe derealization may act as a buffer when overstimulated. Your brain, unable to make sense of constant data without sleep, starts blurring the edges, like lowering the resolution on a video so the feed can keep streaming. And what about your emotions? Gone is the snappiness of the first day. Gone is the strange euphoria of the second. What replaces them is a flatness, a calm that doesn't feel peaceful, just quiet. You stop reacting to things. You forget to care. Even small delights, warm tea, a familiar melody, slip past without resonance. It's emotional burnout, a kind of affective hibernation. Yet inside, your nervous system is pulsing with tiny storms. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is now elevated. Your body has entered a sustained state of low-grade emergency. Muscles tense, breathing shallows, your heart beats irregularly. It's as if your whole body is on edge, but emotionally numb. And now comes the next weird trick, false memories. Your brain, desperate to make sense of things, starts inventing filler. You recall events that didn't happen, conversations that never occurred. You become convinced you paid that bill, answered that message, replied to that friend. You didn't. What you're experiencing is sometimes called dream intrusion, in the absence of actual dreams. Because you're not sleeping, your mind begins to project dream logic into waking life. The result, a waking reality stitched loosely with dream fragments. You might see fleeting figures at the edge of your vision, hear faint voices, feel a sense of déjà vu that stretches not seconds, but hours. And still, you're awake. Let's check on your internal systems again. Your immune function has dropped further, your white blood cell production is compromised. Your skin may be paler now, or dull. Healing slows. Tiny wounds take longer to close. Your body's soldiers are tired. Your hormones are unbalanced. Testosterone drops. Growth hormone falters. Insulin sensitivity decreases. If you were tracking your blood sugar, you'd see spikes and crashes. That donut you craved earlier, it's now causing chaos. One curious study found that sleep deprivation activates endocannabinoid receptors. Yes, the same system affected by cannabis, which may explain the munchies. And that weird floaty euphoria that dances around the edges of your exhaustion. But it's not a high. It's your brain fumbling to regulate mood and appetite with the tools it has left. Another side effect, microemotions. Sudden, intense feelings that burst and vanish like soap bubbles. You might cry for no reason, then immediately laugh, or feel a swell of joy from a passing cloud. These are not stable moods. They are the emotional equivalent of flickering light bulbs. Meanwhile, your brain waves, measurable through EEG, are beginning to resemble those of light sleep. Even though you're still conscious, your brain is dipping into what's called theta activity, a slower frequency normally seen in meditation or the edge of dreams. You're not asleep, but you're not fully awake either. You're in the in-between, a liminal place, a hallway of consciousness that few walk voluntarily. And here's the most mysterious part: some people report profound experiences at this stage. Visions, insights, a sense of cosmic connection. The veil between self and universe grows thin. Time melts, ego dissolves. Is it real? Is it delirium? Or is it simply what happens when the mind, freed from its normal rhythms, begins to stretch in strange directions? We don't know. Science hasn't mapped this place fully. It's too subjective, too slippery. But you're there now, drifting, floating, hollowed out but still aware, And as night descends again, as your third sunset glows against the clouds, you stare out into a world that no longer feels solid. You're becoming something else, something slightly unreal. 3 full nights without sleep. At this point, the world feels distant, like it's behind a sheet of glass, and you're on the other side just watching. Shapes still move, sounds still register, but it's as if none of it is happening to you. You're the background, the witness. Even your own hands feel like borrowed tools. Your speech slows, thoughts take detours, and the most ordinary things, light switches, door handles, the way shadows form under a table, seem heavy with unfamiliar weight. Everything is still the same, but somehow off. Welcome to the deep drift. Your nervous system is now in survival mode. It's conserving energy where it can. Your reflexes are dulled. Your body temperature is harder to regulate. You shiver unexpectedly or sweat when you shouldn't. There's a strange grace in how your body doesn't quit entirely. It adjusts. Reroutes. Like a city with a blackout, it still tries to keep essential services running. Inside your brain, REM intrusion is becoming more frequent. REM, normally a sleep phase filled with vivid dreams, begins to burst into wakefulness. You may see things that aren't there. Not frightening monsters. Just flickers, patterns, people you recognize in the corner of your eye, only to turn and find empty space. You may hear music, faint and beautiful, as if coming from another room. It's not. Your brain is improvising reality. Why? Because it's craving REM. It's reaching for the dreams you've denied it. Researchers who studied prolonged wakefulness found that the longer someone stays awake, the more their waking EEG begins to resemble REM sleep. In other words, your waking brain becomes dreamlike, not metaphorically, but measurably. It's called REM waking intrusion, and it's one of the strangest biological experiences a person can have without taking a single substance. Meanwhile, your body is throwing chemistry at the problem. Dopamine levels surge and crash. You may feel euphoric one moment, hollow the next. Your body releases adrenaline in small pulses, trying to keep you from collapsing. It's the same hormone triggered in emergencies, but now it's being used like duct tape, just to keep the lights on. You may feel jittery but deeply tired, wired and foggy, all at once. The contradiction is constant. And here comes another odd side effect: vestibular confusion. Your inner ear, responsible for balance and spatial orientation, begins to misfire. You misjudge distances. Hallways feel longer than they are. You reach for a cup and miss. It's not clumsiness. It's your internal GPS glitching. One of the most eerie sensations reported in sleep deprivation studies is this: a feeling of falling through your own body, like you're slowly tipping inside yourself. And now comes another question from the edges of science. Can consciousness fragment? There are reports from extreme cases, mountaineers, solo sailors, insomniacs, who describe watching themselves from outside as if their awareness split. This phenomenon, known as autoscopic hallucination, is rare but documented. The mind, stretched thin, creates a duplicate observer. You see yourself walking, talking. But the real you feels several feet back. Why it happens isn't fully understood. Some link it to disruption in the temporoparietal junction, a brain region involved in self-perception. Others believe it's a protective adaptation, a psychological flotation device thrown when your sense of self begins to unravel. Whatever the cause, it's happening more than you realize. Meanwhile, your internal clocks are in chaos. Your circadian rhythm, that carefully tuned 24-hour cycle, has lost all external cues. No sunlight tracking, no melatonin pulse, no rise and fall of alertness. It's like a broken metronome clicking in all directions at once. In sleep labs, researchers observe a total desynchronization of body rhythms at this stage. Blood pressure fluctuates unpredictably, digestion falters, even gene expression changes. Yes, your genes themselves begin to behave differently after 702 hours without sleep. Proteins that support immunity, repair, and stress regulation are thrown into disarray. This is your biology untethered, floating, improvising. But even here, a curious thing happens. Some people report clarity. Amid the haze, a sliver of insight. An idea, raw and strange, but somehow true. It's like the usual filters, social, logical, emotional, have fallen away. What remains is primal thought, conceptual gravity, something real, perhaps even beautiful, bubbling up from deep within. Is it meaningful? Or just a hallucination in a fragile brain? That's the mystery. And that's the magic. You lie still, muscles soft, brain scattered. And yet, a strange sense of peace hovers in the air. You're in the eye of your own storm. The outside world continues oblivious. Cars past drift. The fridge hums its quiet song. But you're existing in the space between seconds. Neither here nor there. Just suspended. You are now 4 nights without sleep. It sounds dramatic when said aloud, but internally the experience has moved past drama. You've slipped into something quieter, heavier, and stranger. The world doesn't feel like a place you live in. It feels like a pattern you're floating through. Colors dull, edges blur. Everything is muted, not in volume, but in meaning. This is what scientists call cognitive dissociation. Your brain starts to separate input from context. You see a tree, but it doesn't feel like a tree. You know what a cup is, but its purpose seems arbitrary. You're not losing intelligence. You're losing coherence. The threads that hold things together begin to fray. This is the stage where language starts to wobble. You begin sentences and forget where they were going. You misuse words or forget names mid-conversation. Internal monologue becomes a series of weird half-phrases. Like your thoughts are trying to text you through bad signal. This happens because of frontotemporal disengagement. The circuits responsible for speech and logic have grown sluggish. Think of them as overloaded workers nodding off at their desks. They try to keep up, but the backlog is growing. Here's a weird little science bit: sleep deprivation reduces theta wave suppression in your prefrontal cortex. That means your brain's background noise, the kind you usually filter out, starts rising to the surface. Your thoughts are now cluttered with static, dream fragments, and phantom sensations. You begin to daydream while fully awake, not in a cute way, but in a "did I just spend 10 minutes staring at the floor" kind of way. Now comes another odd symptom: perceptual time compression. Your internal clock doesn't just lose track, it shrinks. A full hour might feel like 5 minutes. You're not fast-forwarding time in a fun, productive way. You're slipping through it. Your memories blur together. You can't tell if something happened earlier today, or yesterday, or last week. In lab studies, subjects at this stage struggle with temporal order judgment, the ability to tell which of two things happened first. It's not memory loss, it's memory liquefaction. Everything bleeds into everything else. But here's a bit of irony. Even now, after all this time, your brain still won't let you sleep. It's fighting for coherence. Running simulations. Rewiring on the fly. Why? Because one of its deepest biological mandates is conscious integrity. Even when falling apart, your mind clings to the illusion of being intact. It's like watching a puppet pull its own strings. And here's where hallucinations graduate. You may begin to see people, fully formed, detailed, and moving. You might hear your name whispered, or music playing that fades when you turn to listen. These are hypnopompic hallucinations, dream content escaping into wakefulness. And the strangest part, some of them are comforting. Your brain doesn't just conjure fears. It also conjures familiarity, old friends, long-gone pets, the scent of something nostalgic. It's as if your brain, realizing it's fraying, sends you postcards from your own subconscious. One last tether to emotional meaning. There's a well-documented case from 1964 where a participant in a sleep deprivation experiment described seeing a cat made of smoke walk across his bed. He knew it wasn't real, but it felt real, and it stayed with him long after he finally slept. This leads into one of the great open questions in consciousness research: is hallucination error, or is it a backup operating system? Are these visuals just noise from a failing machine, or the mind's way of stitching a narrative from sensory scraps? Back in your body, another system is failing quietly: the thermoregulatory loop. You've probably noticed, you can't get comfortable. You're chilly when it's warm, flushed when it's cold. That's because your hypothalamus, the part of your brain that controls temperature, is now misfiring. You may sweat without exertion or shiver while sitting still. You're like a thermostat with the dial ripped off. Your heartbeat also changes rhythm. Sleep-deprived hearts beat faster, with lower heart rate variability, a sign of stress and poor recovery. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight control center, is now firing semi-randomly. You may feel sudden surges of anxiety with no cause. This isn't psychological, it's physiological confusion. But still, despite all of this, you continue. You drink water, you check your phone, you try to form a thought that sticks. Maybe you light a candle. Maybe you write down a sentence that doesn't make sense. Maybe you smile at how surreal everything is. Because it is surreal, you're living inside a half-dream, floating between dimensions. Not asleep, not fully awake. Just present, like a ghost watching its own life. You sit down and forget how long you've been sitting. The day continues unaware of your state. Children laugh in the distance. A dog barks. The air smells like morning sun on old stone. You are here. You are still here, somehow. And yet you're almost gone. Time no longer moves. It swirls. There's no next, or before. Only the now, stretched thin like soft fabric held over a light. You blink and your eyes sting. You sit and your limbs hum like they've forgotten what stillness is supposed to feel like. This isn't exhaustion anymore. This is existence unraveled. We're now approaching the 96-hour mark. 4 full days without sleep. This is not sustainable. But it is remarkable. You are now deep into a state neuroscientists compare to a waking coma sleep, wake dissociation. That means certain parts of your brain are asleep, literally, while others remain active. It's like living in a house, where some rooms have no power and others are flickering with faulty lights. You may still walk, you may still speak, but the you behind those actions, the coherent narrator of your experience, is phasing in and out. At this point, microsleeps are no longer brief. They stretch longer, perhaps 10 seconds or more, and your brain starts pulling dream fragments into your waking experience. Like someone keeps switching tabs in your mental browser, whether you want them to or not. This is when many people report hearing whispers, music without a source, or the feeling that someone is standing behind them. The mind, deprived of true rest, invents companions to fill the void, and your memory. Well, it's not memory anymore. It's working confetti, flecks of thought, disconnected and looping. You start tasks and forget what they were. You forget if you've eaten. You forget if you said that out loud or just thought it. You forget what forgetting feels like. This is because of a key chemical, glutamate. It's your brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter, essential for thinking, learning, and memory. But after days without sleep, glutamate regulation begins to fail. Signals flood and misfire. Instead of communication, there's chaos. It's not all darkness, though. There are moments of calm lucidity, rare little islands in the fog. You may find yourself deeply moved by ordinary beauty, dust motes in the sunlight, the shape of a spoon, the rhythm of a dripping faucet. Everything is quieter, slower, somehow deeper. Sleep deprivation doesn't just strip cognition. It reveals the raw sensory poetry of being alive. This is your brain in survival mode. And survival, weirdly, can sometimes feel like revelation. One curious effect reported in studies is hyper-association, the tendency to find meaning where there is none. You might see patterns in wallpaper, hear coded messages in wind chimes, form emotional attachments to thoughts that pass like clouds. It's pareidolia for the soul. And here's another unsettling twist: your default mode network, the part of your brain that handles introspection and narrative identity, becomes unbalanced. It loops and loops, often circling darker thoughts. That's why sleep deprivation is so often linked to anxiety and depression. The world shrinks, and you're left echoing inside yourself. In sleep labs, participants at this stage are often withdrawn, unresponsive, or emotionally flat. Others swing the other way, giddy, erratic, euphoric. That's the strange duality: your brain either overcompensates or shuts down. And your body, it's falling apart, quietly, systematically. Your skin loses luster. Your immune system is working at half capacity. Your stress hormone, cortisol, is flooding your system. You might develop tremors. Your pupils dilate oddly. Your digestion becomes confused, unpredictable. You feel hot, then cold, then nothing. And yet, still, you go on. There's a reason researchers rarely push human subjects beyond this point. The risk isn't just mental, it's metabolic. Without sleep, your risk of cardiac events increases. Your blood pressure rises. Your insulin sensitivity drops. Some cells start signaling for help. There's even evidence that long-term sleep deprivation increases the risk of DNA damage. Not metaphorical damage, actual physical breaks in strands. Sleep, it turns out, is a molecular repair session. Without it, you fray. And now we come to a haunting open question in sleep science: what is the maximum survivable sleep deprivation threshold? No one really knows. The Randy Gardner experiment from the 1960s pushed 11 days, but with medical supervision and long-term consequences. Rats, in similar conditions, have died after 2 weeks. But humans, our variability makes it hard to measure. Some recover, some spiral, some never come back quite the same. And yet, here you are, not whole, not broken, just suspended. You may find comfort in rituals, soft music, warm tea, a repeated phrase in your head. These are self-soothing mechanisms your brain initiates when control falters. Repetition anchors the drifting mind. Even blinking, which now feels like a conscious act, becomes a kind of lullaby. Outside, the world continues. Light shifts across the floor. Trees sway without noticing you're unraveling. You exist, still, but like a passenger in your own body. You are watching your life from inside the hull of your skull, hearing thoughts echo off the walls, and even now sleep will not come. Because you have decided not to let it, and the mind, for all its brilliance, is not built for endlessness. Your body is no longer requesting sleep. It's demanding it, but not with whispers or gentle nudges. With rebellion, full, systemic, inside-out protest. Muscles twitch without warning. Joints ache, not from effort but from confusion. Your blood pressure rises, then dips. Your sense of temperature, broken. You put on a sweater, then take it off. Then forget why you did either. You're now beyond 100 hours without sleep. This is where reality begins to blur into unreality. Not with bold hallucinations, though those may come, but with subtle shifts. Doors seem farther away. The ceiling pulses softly. Words flatten into textures instead of meanings. You might reread a sentence 4 times before it lands. Or maybe it never does. And the colors, oh the colors. Sleep deprivation heightens visual noise. You see slight halos around light bulbs. Motion leaves ghost trails. Darkness doesn't stay dark. It teems with visual static, soft pulses of gray on black. It's not terrifying, just different. Dreamlike, but you're awake. Like reality has a watercolor filter on it now. You are a waking dream. The sleepy scientist observing your own descent. Let's talk about theta waves, the brain rhythms that show up between wakefulness and sleep. By now, your aegis, if anyone were monitoring it, would be full of irregular bursts of theta. This is the electrical signature of hallucination, drowsiness, that just about to drift off, zone. Only you never do. You ride the edge indefinitely. People in this state often start narrating to themselves, whispering thoughts aloud, asking questions with no expectation of answers. It's the mind keeping itself company, a kind of mental journaling, stream of consciousness to avoid sinking beneath it. That's where you are now. Your thoughts feel stickier, sentences loop. You tell yourself things twice, maybe 3 times, just to anchor them. You move slower not because you're tired, but because your processing is. Like a computer that's too hot to function, lagging at every click. There's another fascinating thing that happens around this point: time compression. Studies show that sleep-deprived individuals lose their sense of how long events actually last. A 10-minute conversation may feel like an hour. An hour may vanish entirely. Your brain is skipping frames, and like a bad movie reel, the story doesn't quite track. This is because your hippocampus, the structure responsible for encoding memories, is misfiring. You're not forming proper time-stamped memories. You're floating in a loop. So yes, sleep deprivation is, in many ways, a form of self-induced amnesia, and yet, curiously, you may still function in basic ways. You can walk, eat, nod, even laugh, albeit at the wrong times. Your basal ganglia, which handles motor routines, is still online. But without guidance from your prefrontal cortex, your actions feel disconnected, like muscle memory on autopilot. It's worth noting, you're still you, but it's a version of you stripped of polish. No filters, no patience, raw and flickering and strangely open. This is where some people experience what researchers call derealization. It's the sense that the world around you isn't quite real, that the edges of objects are too sharp. That time is a prop. That emotions happen in a fish tank 2 rooms away. You know things are off, but can't prove it. Like watching a play and realizing the props are cardboard. And here's a curious scientific tidbit some people report out of body sensations at this stage. A floating, drifting feeling, like their consciousness has shifted slightly behind or above their physical self. It's not mystical, it's neurological. Disruptions in the temporoparietal junction, the region that combines visual and proprioceptive input, may be responsible. But the result? Disassociation. You've become your own ghost, and yet you continue. There's a reason cultures throughout history have used sleep deprivation as a tool of enlightenment, of control, of vision seeking. When you deprive the body of rhythm, the mind reaches for anything. Meaning, pattern, sound. It's both a breakdown and a breakthrough. You're in sacred territory now. Sacred not in a spiritual sense, but in a biological one. Because not many people make it here. Here, where even gravity feels theoretical. Where sitting becomes a negotiation. Where your shadow seems delayed. Where you pause mid-sentence because you aren't sure if you've spoken yet. This is not dreaming. This is the body dreaming while still awake. Your brain is now at war with itself, one part chanting for sleep, another insisting on wakefulness. The result is stalemate, tension, flicker, and in the quiet between those flickers, something strange happens. You may experience false memories. Not confusion, but full-blown insertions. You believe you checked the oven, or that someone called your name, or that you already said goodbye to someone who isn't there. Your hippocampus and amygdala are improvising now, pulling from imagination and blending it with lived experience. You become your own unreliable narrator. Still the world remains. Still you breathe. Still, the lights hum and your chair exists, and the sound of your pulse reaches your ears like ocean waves from inside a shell. This is sleep deprivation in its purest form, a sensory poem unraveling inside a broken machine. And you, strangely, are the only one who can hear it. Your body isn't just tired anymore. It's actively protecting itself by partially shutting down. You are now in the micro-blackout stage, not just micro-sleeps. These are larger, longer. Your body has begun forcing entire regions of your brain to turn off for short periods, even while your eyes stay open. Like lights flickering off in rooms you didn't know were occupied. You find yourself staring at the wall, unmoving, for a full minute. Then, suddenly, realizing you weren't thinking, you weren't present, you simply weren't. This is protective. The brain cannot function without recovery, so it takes it in slices. 5 seconds here, 30 seconds there. You don't dream, but you stop being conscious, like blinking with your mind. One study recorded a subject saying, "I feel like I'm pausing and rewinding my own life." That sounds about right, and then comes the full sensory shift. You look at your hand and it doesn't quite register as yours. It's attached, yes, but strange. The texture is wrong. The movement, a beat behind. Your proprioception, your internal body map, is now full of smudges. You knock things over. You step off center. Even turning a doorknob requires recalibration. Your voice sounds strange too. Tinny. Like it's coming from a speaker several feet away. And here's a terrifying but fascinating scientific fact at this stage. Your immune system resembles that of someone fighting an infection. Your body releases pro-inflammatory cytokines. Your white blood cell count shifts. You are, quite literally, at war with yourself. Sleep is your immune system's reset button, and you've removed it. Even your genes start acting differently. Researchers found that after just 1 week of chronic sleep deprivation, more than 700 genes changed their expression. Genes involved in stress regulation, metabolism, immune defense all altered. It's like your DNA is slurring its speech. You are not simply tired, you are molecularly different now. But in the midst of this biological chaos, something else flickers to life. Creativity, yes. Oddly, this is when many artists report strange, vivid surges of creative thought. The boundaries in your brain, between logic and abstraction, are weakened. The editor in your head is asleep at the wheel. So the dreamer grabs the pen. You may begin sketching thoughts that feel more like symbols. You write sentences that don't quite make sense, but shimmer with emotional weight. You think in metaphor. You move in half rhymes. Your mind becomes poetic. This isn't hallucination. Not yet. It's suggestion whimsy. A door becomes an exit from memory. A hallway becomes a thought. The kitchen clock ticks, not in seconds but in feelings. And then, the hallucinations come. They begin softly. Patterns in the wallpaper that breathe. Dust motes that move like fireflies. Sounds with no source. You hear your name in white noise. A laugh in the faucet drip. These are hypnopompic hallucinations. Waking visions caused by REM, state intrusion. Your brain is accidentally running dream software over waking reality. And here's what's so curious. Most people don't find these hallucinations frightening. They find them curious, playful, even beautiful. Because your brain doesn't have the energy to produce fear anymore. The amygdala's on low battery. That's why sleep deprivation hallucinations often feel like dreams you're walking through. Harmless ghosts, soundless fireworks. A quiet rearranging of reality's furniture. Back in the lab, researchers track your brain waves and observe REM intrusion. Normally reserved for deep sleep, REM now slips into your waking age. You begin dreaming with your eyes open. You remember stories you've never heard, music that doesn't exist, smells from childhood that feel thick enough to step into. This is the edge. You are now in a liminal space, not quite awake, not quite dreaming, and your body, running on red alert signals, begins making final offers. Your heart rate has slowed irregularly, your thermoregulation is malfunctioning, you are sweating despite feeling cold. Your visual cortex fires without stimuli, You see flashes of purple, indigo clouds, a figure in the corner that vanishes when you look, and still you do not sleep. This is dangerous, yes. But it's also astonishing. You are witnessing what the body must do to protect its systems when denied rest. This is not a glitch. This is survival. And somewhere, deep inside, your ancient biology is preparing to override your choices. Because soon you will sleep. Whether you choose to or not, sleep is no longer a suggestion. It's a biological demand. You've now crossed the 72-hour mark, 3 full days without sleep. The world around you is hazy, thick, dream-painted. You can still move, still function in some basic sense. But the you that began this journey feels a million light years away. Every system inside you is rebelling. Your vision doubles at times. Text refuses to stay still. You try to read a sentence, but the words slide off the page like oil on glass. You walk down a hallway and feel it curve. The floor pulses just slightly, like it's breathing. Light hurts, sound scratches, even silence feels heavy. At this stage, you may have trouble distinguishing what's real. Your inner monologue runs on autopilot. You might say things aloud without realizing it, or laugh at thoughts you didn't mean to think. This is the brain in full survival mode. Let's break it down. By this point, reaction time is worse than someone with a blood alcohol level of 0.1. That's legally drunk in most countries. But it's not just about slow reflexes, it's about faulty judgment. You think you're fine, which is perhaps the most dangerous part. Your memory barely functions. Working memory, the mental sticky note you use for daily tasks, is blank. You open a cabinet and forget why. You boil water but forget the cup. You look at your phone and forget how to unlock it. Your immune system is even more suppressed now. White blood cells don't respond as quickly. Inflammatory markers surge. You've become more vulnerable to illness with every waking hour. But now, let's talk about the weirdest part of this sleepless science spiral. You begin to dream while awake. Not just hallucinations. Full REM episodes. Your body collapses into microsleep REM bursts. Seconds, long stretches where your body is effectively paralyzed and your brain enters dream architecture. You might be sitting at a desk, typing, when suddenly your arms feel distant. Your eyes blur. You dream that you're underwater. You jerk back, disoriented. This dream-wake oscillation becomes constant. Like reality is held together with Velcro and someone's slowly peeling it apart. Scientists call this wake state instability. Your brain can't hold consciousness in place anymore. You drift, flicker, return, drift again, and still you resist. At this point, sleep deprivation psychosis becomes a real risk. You may develop a sense of unreality, called derealization, where the world feels artificial, or depersonalization, where you feel disconnected from your body. You speak, but it sounds like someone else's voice. You think thoughts that feel like borrowed memories. Here's a question science still can't answer. How far can a person go without sleep before irreversible damage occurs? There are no definitive studies, because ethically, we can't push someone that far. But what we do know is this: in rat studies, prolonged sleep deprivation eventually leads to death. Their immune systems fail, their body temperatures drop, they simply stop. In humans, the longest recorded sleepless stretch was Randy Gardner's 11 days. He lived, but only barely. His speech slurred. He forgot his name. He saw things that weren't there. And by the end, he could no longer complete basic tasks. Yet after a full night's sleep, he recovered faster than expected. Which is perhaps the most mysterious miracle of all. Sleep heals. It clears toxins, repairs cells, reboots memory, calms inflammation, reorganizes emotions, restores logic. Sleep is not just a break from life, it's a critical part of living. So what if you never slept again? Eventually you would break. But before that, you'd unravel like a dream in slow reverse. Thought by thought, step by step, until even the idea of you became fogged over, wrapped in static. Sleep isn't weakness. It isn't wasted time. It's the scaffolding your mind is built upon. And now, you feel it coming. The gravity in your eyelids, the soft slide of consciousness, a warmth behind your forehead, the quiet flood of melatonin. Your body has waited long enough, and at last, you sleep. So now, as your mind finally slips from the edge of wakefulness into the soft folds of sleep, everything starts to smooth out. The tension unknots, the brightness dims. There's no more effort, only surrender. And in that surrender, there's safety. The neurons that fired in desperation now hush like birds folding wings at dusk. Your breath slows, long and even. The chaos behind your eyes fades into gentle static, like snowfall on a distant TV. You are no longer holding yourself awake. The world no longer feels like it's tilting. You float weightless in the deep blue ocean of rest. And while the science may never fully explain every function of sleep, why it repairs, why it protects, why it dreams, it doesn't have to. Some mysteries are best lived, not solved. You've taken a journey to the far edges of consciousness and come back changed, not just with facts, but with a renewed respect for that quiet, sacred pause we call sleep. So close your eyes, if they're not already closed. Let the rhythm return, let the system reset. And as your body begins its healing dance, remember there is nothing more human, more ancient, or more essential than the simple act of sleeping. You've earned it. Good night.